Welcome back to episode 7.5. There is a secret episode that you will never be able to hear because we had some issues. But yeah, this is episode 7.5 of the Cooldown, brought to you by the Domestique cycling platform. And today we were treated to something about as dry as kangaroo meat overcooked. It was absolutely terrible. So we started off Total Energies, had a crack. Then they had another crack. And then they had another crack. And this time it actually worked with Buragoo and Verscher going away. And they were left to dangle like a little carrot for a long time. They were away for they got away at 82 Ks and they were away pretty much until the last 10, I think. So with 46 Ks to go, I got a little bit excited because Marc Soler looked to be having an issue. It was a bike change, and this shows you how interesting the stage was because I was excited about Marc Soler having a bike change. So Total Energy still out the front, getting some TV time. Ineos, Jayco, and Confitas come to the front. Jayco's there for some reason. I don't really know, probably trying to position Groenewegen or something. The break at this point starts getting out to 20 seconds after a low of 9 seconds at about the 30K mark. And then it gets a little bit cruel because it goes out to like a minute. And this just seems slack. And at this point, I think they may have been daring to dream. There was a crash with 19 to go. I didn't see who was in it. Merlier got a flat with 13 to go. And there was another crash with 11 minutes to go. This was an Israel Premier Tech rider. It wasn't his fault. It was Kristen Nederlands, I think. And a rider was indecisive about whether they were going left or right at a roundabout. And they made that call too late, and a ripple effect just pushed Nederlands into the gutter. So that was unfortunate for him. I saw Plapp at the back of the peloton dropping off, and I've got a question for you about that later. Merlier makes it back to the peloton with 9Ks to go, but he doesn't really feature from there. The road at this point is proper packed. About 8Ks to go. Merlier is with Remco, and with Remco's track record at the back of the peloton, I was starting to wonder whether there was going to be a crash. At this point, Alpecin, Trek, Visma, and Tudor are on the front, and Cofidis is trying to get spots, and Visma is proper pumping. Vingegaard takes a really serious risk trying to get on the inside of a Tudor cyclist and actually gets his elbows out, which I don't know the last time Vingegaard had to get his elbows out in a sprint, but that was pretty cool to see. But seemed a bit stupid considering the fact that Tadej and Remco are at the back of the peloton at this point having a smoko. There's some jostling for positions. Van der Poel delivers a perfect lead out to drop out Caden Groves to deliver the final lead out for Jasper Philipsen. But Jasper Philipsen is not there. So Milan takes advantage of that. Groves fades. And it's Milan first. And then who would have thought it? It's Wout van Aert second. So that's sort of what I picked up. Did you see anything else outside of there, Cyrus?
No, for my interesting stuff that I saw, not at all related to the race. The race itself, quite, as you said, dry until the final there. It was very much just a positioning contest in terms of if you weren't in good position for when they hit those roundabouts at some crazy high speed, because it had been such a snooze fest the rest of the day. When they hit those roundabouts, it was, if you're not in the front, forget about it. So Merlier, unfortunately, just had that bike issue with 10K to go. As you said, came back to the peloton, but there's plenty of races where if you come back to the peloton with 10K to go, you can be fresh as a daisy and win the sprint. But this was not one of them. If you weren't in the front, you had no chance. So credit to the lead out teams that put the work in to put their riders in position there. And it was really just, you had to hit that 1K banner in good position without having made a massive effort to move up in the few kilometers before to have any chance. And there was only a few riders that did that. But yeah, you mentioned him, second place, his natural habitat, I guess, Wout van Aert. Noticeably, he did it all by himself. He was just surfing the wheels of the other trains. The commentators picked up on this in that he didn't stay with the Visma Lease bike team, who were sitting on the front to keep Jonas out of trouble. He was then instead surfing off the sprinters' chains. The reason for this, you might just think, why wouldn't he sit with his own team if it's coming into the finish and his own team sitting on the front anyway. Their finish line's 5K to go for Jonas. So Jonas was basically second wheel, I think, at that point, 5Ks to go, partly through himself, pushing really hard to move up. And then he finished right next to Tadej Pogačar in 50th or 60th place. So like slid right back down after that. So that's why Wout's not following that train or getting amongst that, because their timing is completely different to going for a sprint. But really cool that Wout's back sprinting and clearly back feeling good.
Yeah. And I did just get a message from a mate just then as the race finished saying Wout is back, baby. And yeah, I mean, we've said it the last two stages, but he has been looking strong, which is really encouraging. I think Jonas would be feeling very happy about that. And I think there would be some other teams, particularly the UAE team, that would be looking at Wout going through a sprint like that and thinking, crap, Wout's got legs.
And UAE's bigger problem is their own riders crashing. So Soler's bike change was because of a crash. He looked to be completely fine. No crash is good though. Like, it's just going to knock a little bit off your sleep, even if it's just a little touchdown and you just take a bit of skin off or a little bruise here or there. And then, as we heard overnight, Almeida broken rib, which I haven't broken a rib. I've only bruised them, and they always say that the bruising's also bad, which I just thought when I had two bruised ribs and thought this couldn't possibly be worse than this. How does anyone breathe with a broken rib? So fair play to him for still riding. And I don't know how he's going to go recovering in time to be that useful in the mountains with a broken rib. But we're going to have to see how that one plays out. But yeah, for Tadej, that's his biggest worry at the moment, is just keeping his teammates upright, and will they be able to do the job that they're assigned to in those second and third weeks?
Yeah, so with that, Almeida, I was listening to the SBS commentary, and they said that Almeida, he had stated that he didn't get any sleep last night, and that he was in quite a bit of pain. So I don't know how much to read into that. You know, it would be unusual if these teams are telling the truth, but also it's not exactly a stage that Visma can say, well, we're going to hit him, because it doesn't really matter. He's dropped out of general classification contention anyway. All he has to do is get across the line for the next couple of days, make it to the rest day, and then hopefully once we start going vertical, he's better. And I think that's what they're hoping that they can do. They can get into the rest day, assess how he's feeling, take him out on a training ride, see how he's performing, and then suss out what happens from there, I guess.
Yeah, I think if it was a different stage today, they might have thought differently. Like, the fact that there's these two sprint stages back to back, then another stage it's not particularly difficult, and then a rest day. So they're thinking, right, basically in a perfect world, 4 really easy days for him where he doesn't have to ever really push to his limit. His time cut's not an issue because he can just sit last wheel in the peloton if he needs to and just cruise around. So timing wise couldn't be better in terms of how this Tour de France is set out, but I'm sure he'd much prefer it didn't happen at all. And it's just going to be whether you can still recover doing 4 hours on a bike each day.
Yeah, well, I mean, and on top of that, I don't know if you saw the photo of him at the finish line, but he has some really bad gravel rash on his ass. So you talk about him sitting at the back of the peloton. I wouldn't be surprised if you see him out of the saddle as much as he can be at the back of the peloton, because that looks so uncomfortable to sit on. I can't imagine. And one other one, another scratching that I did see is that Eddie Dunbar, who I named as Dickhead of the Day, I now feel a bit guilty because Eddie Dunbar has pulled out of the Tour de France, which is a big blow for Jayco, as in my opinion, in this first week, he's been their most consistent rider. So yeah, that's a shame for them.
Yeah, definitely. And he looked like he's on really good form. But as you did highlight yesterday, self-inflicted. So obviously bad luck that there was a huge crash right in front of him, which caused him to jam it on, but was somewhat avoidable, that one. Just, hopefully he recovers well and can use that form later on in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then we move on to the stuff that you noticed at home, or you didn't notice at home. I didn't really notice anything at home that I don't think that we have already, that we haven't already touched on. We've talked about what it's like to be in a nervous peloton. Obviously, this looked like it was a little bit of a nervous peloton. But yeah, aside from that, I didn't pick up anything. But you had sort of mentioned that there were things that you noticed outside of the race. Did you have anything there?
I've really just got one today, which was Harry Sweeney's beverage of choice as he was giving the thumbs up to the camera, which we should highlight. I just find it crazy that one of the most consumed beverages in the world, the humble can of Coke, is also such a performance-enhancing drink that it is used in the probably pinnacle of endurance sport, the Tour de France, and every other bike race in the world by amateurs to the top level of the sport. Like, it's crazy. The sport has advanced so much in the last 5 years, let alone 10, 20, and still the can of Coke is in every musette bag. And I'm sure every single listener that has had one during any training ride or any race will attest to the performance enhancing and just general well-being, short-term well-being benefit of having a can of Coke during a bike ride.
And I think we should also point out that the fact that it is used in ultra endurance sports suggests that a can of Coke a day is probably not the best thing for the average person, considering it is used as an energy drink for these guys. I think it's got way too many calories in it, and this is not an advertisement for drinking Coke if you're just an average punter.
I always just think
I saw
whenever
you.
I see someone getting on one, whenever I see someone just at an airport, for example, having a full strength can of Coke, none of the diet or no sugar options, I just think, Jesus, that is hardcore. Just no exercise. You're about to sit on a plane for 3 hours and you're just getting on the hard stuff. But there you go.
Yep. I saw you double barreled with some Red Bull today, though. So, yeah.
Well, the Red Bulls here are multivitamins. That's how I'm getting my vitamins in for the week, because sometimes the veg is a bit questionable at the buffet. So got to get the vitamins in somehow. And went one Red Bull yesterday, and it worked at the start for me to get in a break. So I thought with the climbing start today, I'd have to go 2, and got me over the climb. So maybe tomorrow I'll just double again and go 4.
Yeah, let's see. Don't do that. But let's move on to the domestique of the day. This one, I didn't see anyone specific, but my one is Almeida for getting on the bike today and for continuing under the conditions that he's in. I think, he's putting himself through a considerable amount of pain for the next couple of days to try and be okay, to help Pogačar win the Tour de France. And I think that deserves the domestique of the day today. But what did you come up with?
That's a really good one. I hadn't thought of it that way, but also that's, I think, part of the reason why when Almeida gets a result, you see Poggy going absolutely nuts for it on Instagram. He'll be sharing it on his stories. He'll be congratulating him and everything. I think Poggy really loves him. When Ayuso does something, just radio silence from Pogačar. And I think if Ayuso was in the same position, he would be back home already by now. And that's, like, we're not saying that what Almeida is doing to push himself through is necessarily the right thing, just putting your body through that much rubbish. But as a teammate, if you're looking at someone that's willing to do that for you, as opposed to someone that's going to pull the pin as soon as things aren't going well, I think, if we're talking teammates as domestiques, then that's certainly worthy. My one is a tough one today because there's obviously a lot of guys putting their sprinters in position, and none particularly stood out other than the fact Quinn Simmons was still doing it at the end of the race after just churning away on the front for hours earlier in the day. For me, it's Mathieu Bourgadeau for just waiting for Matteo Vacher out of every corner when they were away together. So Matteo Vacher, for those that haven't been paying attention, was the one that got taken out by Benjamin Thomas on, I think, stage 2, and also had another crash. So he's had 2 crashes, completely not his own fault. Someone else's bike just landing in front of him both times. So you can understand he was a bit gun-shy going around these corners, but Bourgadeau had to wait for him every single corner, and not just by a little bit. He was losing 10 lengths around these corners when they were desperately trying to hold on. So Bourgadeau gets my domestique of the day just for waiting for a mate.
Yeah, fair enough. And how good was it to see? I think not that we called them out specifically, but I think it just shows that some of these World Tour pros must be listening to the cooldown, because we'd sort of called out some of these smaller teams, and over the last couple of days, these smaller teams have been the ones that are animating the race. I think this would have been a proper snooze fest if it wasn't for those Total Energy guys. They were the ones that meant that the peloton had to actually get a move on to make sure that gap didn't blow out. And so I would like to thank them for their sacrifice today. I think that was honourable,
definitely.
and it made the stage a little more interesting. Not a lot, but a little more interesting for me to watch. So, cheers, lads. So then we get on to the dickhead of the day, and I want to take this one first because I'm worried that you'll steal mine. Mine is the ASO for putting these two stages together, or the organisers of the tour. This is the weekend, and we have two stages that you could tune in literally the last kilometre.
Yeah, it's really funny. So you've got the ASO. I've also got the ASO for a different reason, and I wrote this down, and it's going to seem really anticlimactic because nothing happened. But the finish line is not a straight line, and for me, they were racing on straight roads the whole day, and they just love these bendy finish lines where you can't see the finish line until right at the end. And a lot of people just jump on the UCI's back for this all the time. The UCI is the governing body, Union Cycliste Internationale, but they're not setting out the race course designs. They have to approve them and decide it's all right. But ASO, at the end of the day, the Amori Sports Organization, they are planning the race route. There's so many straight roads to choose from. The Laval's a pretty big town, and they choose a bendy one. So there was nothing today because it was spread out enough, and I'm sure on those uphill finishes it's not as much of an issue. But I think we just need to just scrap these bendy finishes because the one where we had crashes everywhere and Merlier just pipped Milan on the line, can't remember which stage number that was now, that caused a massive crash, and I forgot to put it in that day because there was plenty of other dickheads that day. But just having these bendy finishes is just a recipe for riders crashing into each other in a sprint finish. And you also can't even pick how riders are going to hold their line. It's just basically a free license for whoever's in front to put anyone else either out, push them all the way to the outside, or push them into the barrier on the inside, because there's no straight line to take. So for me, I agree with you on the two boring sprint stages. And then also, if you're going to have a sprint stage, at least make it a straight line to the finish.
I was actually thinking that as they were coming through that last, it almost looked like they were racing an F1 race. Almost like chicanes on the road. It looked like, I was really worried. It was lucky that at that point it was so strung out, and so people didn't necessarily have to push for those lines. But it had potential to be a lot worse than it was, and I was on the edge of my seat for that, which was, again, I agree with you there. It's not that hard. So something that I'd like to clarify before we move on, because it actually happened in today's race. I don't know if you noticed, but there was an issue with the leader of the sprints classification in the Tour of Shanghai wearing he was second in the sprints classification, and he was wearing the sprinter's jersey on the sign-on this morning. And he was actually pulled aside and told that because he is the African Continental Champion, he had to wear the African Continental Champions jersey, not the sprinter's jersey, because as of the 1st of July, there has been a rule change where if you are wearing a jersey on loan, you have to wear your World Champs Continental jersey, whatever it is, over the jersey that you're wearing on loan. So I think that helps clarify why Wellens was wearing the Belgian National Champs jersey as opposed to the polka dots jersey. That likely wasn't a choice. That's because as of July 1st, there's been a rule change. So I just wanted to clarify that, because we talked about that and sort of theorized about why that might be the case. And it seems that he didn't have much of a choice in that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think it's also cool. I think they've got all these cool national champs jerseys, African champs jerseys. Wear the jersey that's rightfully yours rather than the caretaker one. And then, if you don't have one of those special ones, then wear the.
I don't disagree with you there.
One on loan.
So the only other thing that I wanted to highlight before we move on to the summary of the women's Giro is there's a Domestique article today by Barry Ryan that looks at Pogačar's frustration about Visma Lease Bike's strategies in the feed zone. And I am wondering whether Visma Lease Bike has successfully cracked this carefully constructed image of Pogačar being this happy-go-lucky guy. You know, we saw footage of him sort of tapping riders on the other side and you know, playing a couple of games with them in the podium. It does very much seem like they want to put across this idea of him being this jovial joker. And yeah, I mean, I think Visma Lease Bike is really getting under his skin. Do you think that's the intention there?
I think, yeah, they're going to look at, like, at the moment, little things that they can do to get an edge, because they are not getting an edge on pure riding alone, I guess. And you see that in any sport and anything that, like, yeah, it's not the nicest thing to do. Like, personally, I don't necessarily even think it's their fault. I think the whole switching back to feed zones is a completely stupid idea. They are the most dangerous part of the race by far. So I think it's partly self-preservation by them, to make sure that they stay out of trouble, and then it makes it harder for everyone else. But this isn't a new thing either, what they're doing. Like, I remember when I first started racing at a high level in Australia, the big team back then, which was Genesis Wealth Advisors, I think, but now it's the Praties team. They used to do the same thing, just rip it through every feed zone, because they were better at feeding from the car than other teams were, and they always had a team car in the race. And they weren't the first to do it. Like, it's been going on for years and years and years. I think, if Poggy says 99 positive things and one negative thing, then the media are going to jump on that to try and just, a bit of tall poppy syndrome kind of thing. So for Visma Lease Bike, they might think it's achieving something, but also I think Poggy's not going to be fazed by it. And I don't know if I don't think he's reading the media articles. He does seem to be watching stupid reels on Instagram still.
So we're losing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cyrus. I think we just lost you there for a second, but you said, I don't know whether he's reading the media, but...
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I don't think it's going to be a big deal for him.
Well, he didn't seem too bothered about it, because during the stage today, he was asking his team car how the Tour of Austria was going. And also, I think he checked in on how Urska Zigart is going in the women's Giro d'Italia. So he seemed rather nonplussed by it, which I think brings on to the next section. Did you have a summary of the women's Giro?
Yeah, I was able to catch up on the results of that, and we saw one of our Domestique content creators, Sarah Giganti, take her second stage win of the women's Giro. So it was another pretty aggressive stage. It didn't look like, when I checked in before the last climb, that she was going to be a chance, and there was, it looked like it was going to be Elisa Longo Borghini, who was going to mow down the remnants of the breakaway and take the win. And Sarah just seemed to fly away from the chasing group, which was basically what was left of the peloton, and then past Elisa Longo Borghini and take a win by 45 seconds from Elisa Longo Borghini in second, and then Isabella Holmgren in third. Marlon Rosa in fourth, but that meant that Marlon Rosa lost the pink jersey, Maglia Rosa, to Elisa Longo Borghini. So she's now 22 seconds behind, Marlon Rosa is, and Sarah Giganti's moved back up into third. And I did look ahead for that just to see if that was going to be the final GC. And I don't necessarily think it will, because tomorrow is a pretty solid stage, with quite a bit of climbing and descending. No long climbs, but just up and down the whole day. So especially given the way that the race has panned out so far, I think it could change around a little bit there for the final stage. So certainly if you've got a way of watching that, it's going to be far more exciting than the first part of the men's stage. So get around Sarah in tomorrow's stage, and hopefully she can at least hold her podium or move up a few spots maybe.
Yeah. So that then moves us on to stage 9. We are on stage 9, right? I feel like I'm watching so many tours at the moment, but we are on stage 9, and I'm going to butcher these, but this is from Chinon to Châteauroux.
Châteauroux, yep.
Châteauroux, and it looks a little bit lumpy at the start. which makes me kind of hopeful that potentially there could be at least some breakaway action. The intermediate sprint is super early in the stage, and I think I've got that at is it 24.2 kilometers? I think the intermediate sprint is out of 174.1 kilometers.
Yep, that's right.
So then it gets, after about 84 kilometers, it gets flat it looks like it's trending slightly uphill, but nothing that will test anyone. And again, I think we're both probably going to tip the same person to finish this, but just having a look at how he went today, he won the intermediate sprint easily today. And then he also, Wout was in his wheel, but it's Milan, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be contrarian and go with Merlier, who let me down today. And I was just thinking back, I don't think I've got a single tip right so far, but Merlier, I think, will have a point to prove after today that he is actually still the fastest guy, and he just didn't get to have a crack at it today. I think the Quick Step team as well will put him up there, but it is going to be a genuine bunch sprint tomorrow. I think Châteauroux, for those that aren't aware, is renamed Cavendish Town. Quite literally, the sign coming into the town has a Mark Cavendish Town underneath it now, because he, I think, has won 3 stages of the Tour de France there before. So if you look at, just picture Mark Cavendish winning a bunch sprint into a medium-sized French town, there's a decent chance it's that one. And it's going to be a genuine one for the sprinters tomorrow. A little bit of annoying amount of wind the whole day, like today, it won't be enough to split it, but I think Merlier is actually the quickest guy. As long as he can get to the finish line well, then I think he will take the win tomorrow.
Cool. And I don't know, based on today's, maybe a dark horse for at least a placing could be Wout van Aert based on how he went today. So might be worth keeping an eye on that Red Bull helmet, although it is harder to keep an eye on a Red Bull helmet now that there is the whole Red Bull team, which makes it more difficult to spot Wout. But with that, did you want to give a rundown of our Tour of Magnificent Shanghai today? Bit of a tough stage for you.
Stage 7 for us today. It was brutal climb out of the gates and then pretty flat after that. But we actually got some big crosswinds of our own. Fortunately, I was able to just get over the climb. We had a group of 90, and despite there being a massive crosswind, the 90 guys were probably the lightest guys that weren't going to rip it apart in crosswinds. So it was kind of a bit of a stalemate after that. I had to crack off the front a few times trying to get something to go, but a lot of teams were pretty happy to control for the sprint, the intermediate sprints and final sprint, to try and pick up some bonus seconds. Absolutely hectic downhill headwind sprint, which are the worst kinds because no one can do anything, and it's so easy in the bunch that everyone that is cooked can still somehow find their way to the front and start boxing on. So that was won by Peter Rikhanov, who is from the Chengdu team. He is, Russian guy. He's been around for years now, I think, but he was a bit of a surprise winner. Wouldn't be the quickest guy here by far, just timed his sprint perfectly. And noticeably, though, the lead did change. So Henok Malubran moves into the lead ahead of the Kahara rail rider Silva. And it's going to be interesting. 1 second separating those two tomorrow coming into the sprint stage. So I can't see Silva being able to take more bonus seconds back on Henok, but it'll be interesting how it plays out tomorrow.
Yeah. Speaking to Henok, he said it is a lot easier to defend the GC coming into tomorrow's stage than it is to take that time back. So he's quite happy, even though their lead is only 1 second, he's quite happy with where they're at. The polka dot jersey also changed. So Aguirre is now in the polka dot jersey over Pelot, which is sad because Pelot has been my favourite post-stage press conference. He's a fantastic guy, Simon Pelot, and he's an absolute champion. But also, Peter was a really good press conference today. So yeah, another really nice guy. So happy for him, and also happy for Hennick coming in to the yellow jersey, just because he was getting more and more frustrated, and I was worried he was going to throw a bidden at me at some point. So yeah, it's nice that he's got that for my safety. But yeah, look, with that, that I think that's a wrap for today's. Bit shorter today, which is good. But yeah, cheers, Cyrus. Good luck for tomorrow. I'll see you out there.
Cheers. See you bright and early. Last stage for us tomorrow, and then we'll be after tomorrow's recap. We'll both be going back to our respective homes and have some better Wi-Fi and hopefully a little bit more sleep than we've been getting this week.
Yeah, well, maybe for you, not for me, but I will be missing. I won't be able to do Monday's recap, so I will miss that because I may be able to do it. I will be in an airport. So I'll see how the Wi-Fi goes, but there's a good chance that I won't be able to do Monday's recap. So we may take an early rest day there, and yeah, we'll pick it up. But I'll keep that published on the social media if we are going to do that. But yeah, cheers, Cyrus. Have a good sleep,
Cool.
and I'll see you bright and early.
You too. Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, cheers. Oh, and before we go, the Domestique platform. So Instagram, go over to the page, have a look at some of those articles that are going up. They're doing some fantastic reporting over there. Check out, there is a women's Giro tour diary. I'm just having a look. It's by one of the UAE Aussie. Where are we? Anyway, there's a Giro women's tour diary that is going up, which is really good. And I would also ask that you go and subscribe to YouTube so that we can show that we are pulling in some numbers, because that would be really cool. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much, everyone. And I think it's Brody from UAE is doing the tour diaries from memory. Yep. So yeah, jump over and have a look at that if you want to stay updated with the women's Euro in a bit more depth than what we're providing you every day. So yeah, cheers everyone, and we'll see you later.
Cheers.